Hiya guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Newcastle United training ground. It is Wednesday morning, match day -1 ahead of Everton. Just been inside speaking to Eddie Howe at his news conference ahead of that trip to Goodison later today. Of course, the team will travel down to Merseyside this afternoon. A couple of talking points today. The first of those was the first question put to the manager, and something that we were all keen to get a little bit more detail on, and it's the injury to Nick Pope. Of course, he suffered that injury against Manchester United at the weekend when his shoulder popped out. He's obviously been seeing specialists and consultants. The club doctor has been involved in meetings over the last 48 hours, and Eddie Howe has confirmed the story that we put out on Sky Sports News last night, that he will definitely require an operation, Nick Pope, and he is set to miss 4 months of action as a result of that. So, you know, looking at it, he's not likely to come back until April, which is obviously, you know, towards the end of the season. Eddie said that he's down about it because obviously he was in the form of his career here at Newcastle. He obviously wants to be involved with England in the Euros, and you would have to say this now puts that in jeopardy, with him probably coming back to fitness maybe just like a month or so before the Euros, and really because he was such a big part of the project here and he'd been playing so well. I mean, we all remember what he did in Paris just last week. He was excellent against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, a couple of top saves against Chelsea. So yeah, really tough for I think everyone at the club to stomach at this stage, but they're going to have to do without him. And it's almost the way Eddie's talking, something that they're getting used to with the amount of injuries they've got. Of course, Newcastle now have got 12 players out injured or missing, if you include Sandro Tonali in that. So 11 out injured plus Tonali. So a full team. You could field a full team of Newcastle players who are on the treatment table right now, with Tonali thrown in there for good measure as well. I also asked him what his plan was for January in terms of potentially replacing Nick Pope. Will he look to bring in a short-term replacement until the end of the season? Of course, both Aaron Ramsdale and David De Gea have been named. You would suggest that if De Gea was to come to the club, it would most likely be on a short-term deal. If it was to be Ramsdale, it would be on a longer-term deal. So put that question to him today, and he said, look, I've seen the stories, I've seen the headlines, but honestly we have not at all looked at January yet in any position, because if we were to do that, then we'd be looking in positions all over the pitch, not just in the goalkeeping area, because we need cover everywhere due to the number of injuries that we've got. So he didn't want to talk about potential replacements for Nick Pope, but what he said he does want to do is he wants to give Martin Dubravka and Loris Karius a chance now to come in and, what he says, consolidate their places in the squad. He says Dubravka is a high-class goalkeeper. I've always had a lot of faith in him. The reason we brought Nick Pope to the club is we wanted to beef up the squad at that time, give us options and ensure that the squad was robust enough to deal with football on the European front and obviously domestically as well. It wasn't a case of us saying that Dubravka wasn't good enough. So he says, look, he showed it on Saturday when he came in. He showed it against Manchester United away in the Carabao Cup game. He has got the abilities to be the Newcastle United goalkeeper for the next few months or however long that will be. So he says he's got full trust in him. He says he's great with his feet, brilliant shot stopper, and you know, no worries at all with Dubravka being in goals for the foreseeable future. So let's see what happens come January. I think a lot of it will all depend on, one, Dubravka's form, and two, Dubravka's fitness. As long as he stays fit, and I think Karius and Gillespie are there as well, there's a chance that they probably won't look to bring someone in January. But obviously if there's question marks over the form and fitness of one or both of those, it might be something that the club need to do and look at that January transfer window. Of course, Ramsdale would be an obvious one, given that he was signed by Eddie Howe for Bournemouth from Sheffield United. In fact, I think it was Eddie's nephew Andy who does a lot of the recruitment here at Newcastle, and you know, he was the head of recruitment, I believe, at Bournemouth as well. I think it was he that essentially found Aaron Ramsdale playing for Sheffield United reserves, plucked him from obscurity, gave him his chance, he made his Premier League debut for Bournemouth, and then they sold him on ironically back to Sheffield United for, I think it was round about £20 million. So that's an obvious one. Ramsdale, due to his associations with Eddie Howe and his backroom team before, and I think Eddie's gone on record to say he's a goalkeeper who's got everything, but I think he'd probably be quite difficult to get out of Arsenal, certainly on a temporary deal. They would probably need to buy him permanently, and is there the funds to do that in January? It would cost a lot of money. You would imagine that would be a difficult deal to do. De Gea is another name that has been mentioned. A couple of the national newspapers reporting that. Look, that you'd suggest that would be more of a short-term deal. Remember though, he was earning £350,000 a week at Manchester United. Now, while he could command that in Newcastle, you would suggest that if he wanted anything near that, a deal would be difficult. He would probably only earn a third of that at Newcastle, but maybe it's something he wants to do to try and get back playing. If you look at the two, De Gea or Ramsdale, my feeling would be Ramsdale would be one that the club would rather do, but probably more difficult to do because obviously he's tied down at a club and De Gea is a free agent at the moment. But nevertheless, Eddie Howe said this morning that, look, they're not looking at any of that at the moment, and outfield players as well, because they don't know how different the picture is going to look come the end of December with the injured players. If he has the likes of Harvey Barnes, Callum Wilson, say Sven Botman back by then, even a couple more on top of that. Sean Longstaff's another one. If he has these guys back by the end of December, start of January, probably doesn't need to dip too much into the market. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks with a look ahead to January. If these injuries remain and it stays a similar situation, of course the club are going to have to plunder the market in January without a shadow of a doubt. The other big talking point today, of course, was the draw, the FA Cup draw against Sunderland, which is scheduled for the first week in January. Unbelievable draw, the first time the clubs will have played in 7 years. Of course, Newcastle have got a terrible record against Sunderland, and Eddie Howe was asked that first up today, his views on that. He said when he thought it was a wind-up, he thought someone was joking with him, primarily because of the cup draws they've already had this season, horrendous draws in both the Carabao Cup and the Champions League, but yet they're still in both competitions, and now Sunderland away at the first time of asking in the FA Cup draw. So, as he said, a really difficult task for different reasons than the other ones. He says, look, we know it'll be a red hot atmosphere there, it'll be an explosive atmosphere was the words he used, but he said, look, we've been used to that this season. We've played many games in really, really difficult, explosive, pent-up stadiums already this season, and we expect the same again. He said he didn't realise how bad Newcastle's recent record was against Sunderland, but he said that's an extra incentive for them to go and win. He said, I know how much this means to the club, I know how much this fixture means to the supporters, and we will take it seriously and with full responsibility, and it's a match that we want to go and win. He also says the squad potentially could be looking a lot different by then, with players coming back, so that will dictate what side he plays on the night. But it sounds the way he's speaking that he's going to take it very seriously, and I would be surprised if Eddie made a lot of changes for that game. I think he'll go with a strong lineup. I think he probably feels he has to do that given the magnitude of the game and given how much it means to the supporters, with it being a game that they really need to win. Also, in addition to that, he talked about the FA Cup record over the last couple of years since he's been manager, exiting at this stage to both Cambridge and Sheffield Wednesday the last couple of years. I think that's something he really wants to change. So Sunderland away at the start of January is a match that they're going to be putting everything into to try and win. So those are the two key talking points. Lots obviously on Louis Miley as well, and his emergence, and just how good he's been playing those 3 games in the space of a week, and what he's had to put into that physically and mentally, and just said that he's been phenomenal around the scenes. The players haven't been surprised how well he's done, but to play 3 games of that magnitude in the space of 7 days is better than he could ever have expected. He said he's never seen a 17-year-old explode onto the scene and play 3 games as big as that, PSG, Chelsea and Manchester United, as well as what he has done. Never seen that before, but isn't surprised And in terms of his position, he says, look, eventually we can see him playing like a number 6, a more sort of holding role, but at this moment in time, he's more of a number 8, number 10, someone who can get forward, break the lines and support the attack. So he was asked who he thought he was like in terms of a player who he reminded him of, and he said he was racking his brains, couldn't think of anyone, but look, he has all the utensils to go on and be a top player. So I think Eddie has even been pleasantly surprised as to how well he's dealt with what's been thrown at him these last couple of weeks. So anyway, off to Everton for the squad later on today as they look to try and carry on this unbeaten run that's going with the same 11 players, no new additions. So I would suspect the exact same team that took to the field against Manchester United on Saturday will play tomorrow. I know Kieran Trippier did miss training yesterday when I was here, but word is that he's fine, and I would imagine it'll be the same team that will take on Everton at Goodison. So that's it from me just now, guys. I'll see you soon, and those that are travelling to Goodison, safe travels. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and as ever, feel free to leave a comment below. Cheers now.